What's up, Lori? Hey, I'm so glad you taken some time out of your day to chat with us on the Low Carb Hustle podcast. We're super glad you're here.
Thank you. This is so exciting. I'm so excited to just really get out here, spread my message, get on the podcast, and just hang out with like-minded people who are on the same journey because that makes everything so more powerful when we hang out with people who are doing similar things.
100%. Yeah, you're the average of the five people you spend your most time with. I totally believe that. So, for anyone who doesn't know you, is not familiar with your work, kind of your story, can you just give us a little bit of background on how you got to be where you're at, how you dropped a bunch of weight, what some of your hindrances were?
Yeah, so I have been obese my whole life up until my early 50s. And so I had to struggle with obesity and depression as a child. And I think I reached up to about 200 pounds. And what I remember was my mom had put me on the Atkins diet. She was a big Adele Davis reader who was one of the nutritional.
How old were you when she put you on the Atkins?
I must have been, it had to have been before junior high because I don't
Okay.
remember being 200 pounds. And so it was somewhere between fifth grade and seventh grade. And so I remember being really overweight. I remember eating Atkins bread. And I remember my mom saying I did so much better on amino acids because I also had depression. And once she took those sugars out, my brain came back. I did better. I reset my metabolism. I got myself down to 150 pounds. And I was able to stay and maintain that through high school. But then as an adult, I would just start going on all the diets, all the low calorie diets. And I remember being addicted to donuts. I had to make the donut run. There was all the ice cream. I was addicted to ice cream. So there was a lot of food addictions that were still there. And there was a lot of things that I kept nibbling on and eating. And I ended up going from, if I wasn't losing weight, I was gaining weight. So I always felt like I was either trying to starve myself or I lost control and I would gain the weight. And so it was always just using that willpower. Then all of a sudden, I seemed to be 225 pounds, and so then one day I was outside with my eldest son. He was 8 at the time. And I walked into the living room and my then husband mentioned, or just asked me without even looking at me, he just said, "When are you going to lose the weight?" And I'm like, okay, well, I guess now. So that's when I started my official weight loss journey. I had PCOS, I had asthma, bronchitis, sinusitis. I had some infertility because of PCOS because I just started thinking about having another child. And there was still the anxiety and the depression that popped in because I remember being afraid that people look at me. I didn't want to be noticed. I didn't feel beautiful. I felt very uncomfortable in my body. So I started doing, during that time period, it was the Susan Powter fat-free diet. And so, that's what I jumped into. I started doing that. I did lose weight, but one of the things I've noticed over the years is every time I go on a low-calorie diet, cut the fat and the protein, I never felt better. And so I might lose the weight, but then it would just all boomerang back because I never addressed the food sensitivities or the underlying condition, which was food sensitivities. And so what ended up happening was my 30s and 40s, I just lost that quality of life because it was always weight gain. I would get up to 200 pounds. I'd try to get it back off. I'd go back up. And so I was struggling to stay under 200 pounds. And so that was really the struggle. And one of the things I noticed is that when I started researching, because what I've been doing all along is reading books. And so I was looking for my weight loss solutions. So if I was getting into more of the Paleolithic ancestral health books, I started researching that and started understanding that maybe I need to eat more whole foods. And so I kind of transitioned into a paleo diet and lifestyle. And I started taking out the wheat and the sugar, but I never took it out fully initially until I read Dr. William Davis's Wheat Belly book. Once I read that, I was able to really start getting that wheat out of my diet. And then I even, for a while, did the HCG diet. I don't know if you're aware of what that is, but that,
Oh, yeah.
the pregnancy diet, it really works to drop the weight, but it's fat free. And
And
then,
you're not eating that many calories because you
and
were
no,
eating what,
it's
between
more of a
500 and 800
starvation
calories per day?
process. Yeah, you can't maintain it. Soon as you bring back the wheat and the sugar, you gain all the weight back. And so that's just the way the human body's designed. So it basically, I couldn't keep any weight off. And this is the same story everybody else has. And so you kind of have to get to the point where if you want to lose the weight for good, you have to make certain changes. And so one of the changes that I ended up discovering was when I took the wheat out of my diet, I could actually focus better. But it wasn't until I went full on keto and low carb that I was able to actually ditch the sugar turn my brain back on and just get real excited about life again. Because back then, before then, I couldn't focus. My eyes were wonky, my hair was thinner, and I still had inflammation. I was having a lot of arthritis in my knees or osteo pain where I was soreness. So I had degenerating knees. But once I started keto, I dropped 20 pounds. That's when my life started. I feel like I got my life back. And that's really what really guided me forward. I never looked at it as a diet. I looked at it as a lifestyle change. And I discovered that since I felt better and I could be more excited about life at that point, I never looked at this as restriction. I looked at it as opportunities. And I just got excited about biohacking my body and figuring out what it is that I needed to do next.
That's
And
fascinating.
yeah,
How old
yeah.
were you when you started the keto diet?
It was about 8 years ago. So I think I was about 53. It might have been
Um,
2016.
okay. And then how long were you doing like Paleolithic ancestral eating before that?
So I think I did that for a couple of years and it just didn't work for me. It was not low sugar enough. So one of the things looking back that I could realize is just insulin resistance was too strong in my body. I couldn't have any added sugars, even fruit, until I corrected insulin resistance. And so that was the huge one. And then because I also had food sensitivity, if I left in any honey, because honey was, healthy, right? Honey's
That's
healthy,
right.
so. But it wasn't healthy for my body because I had insulin resistance. I was pre-diabetic. And so I had to take all the sugars out and I had to reduce all the dried fruit, which I was eating goji berries, golden berries, and mulberries, which were good for blood sugar. Those were things that were supposed to help the body, but they were too much sugar for my body. So that's why I had to go deeper into keto. And so a paleo diet didn't work for me and I didn't lose any weight on it. And so I just had to ditch all the sugar. And once I did, that's when my brain turned back on. That's when I can get a brain that was focusing. That's when I retrained myself, certified in functional diagnostic nutrition. And that's where my life started. And I really think, and I truly believe this, but keto saved my life. And this is why I believe this. Not only did I get my body and my brain back, I reduced the pre-diabetes and don't have diabetes because I've had a sister that was 400 pounds and she died from diabetes. She did not get control of it. Everybody in my family has cancer or diabetes. I'm the only one that's my brother. I actually helped my brother reverse his diabetes. And so he no longer has it and he got down to his goal weight using my program. And so what's really cool about this is the fact, I like to call it flip your sugar switch off. When you flip that sugar switch off and you become a fat burner, you actually flip your disease causing genes off. And so the reason this saved my life is because I no longer have to worry about disease developing in my body unless I don't get my stress under control, because stress is something that's a lot harder to manage. But for the most part, one of the things that happened a couple of years after going keto was I had a spot of melanoma pop out on my neck and I had to get it surgically removed. It was all gone and nothing has ever come back. But from my personal feeling on this is that my body detoxed it. It's like it went into apoptosis. It says this doesn't need to be here. Let's clean it up. I cleaned up my diet. I cleaned up my food. I was no longer feeding that through my body. My body was no longer has any glucose. It was not feeding this cancer. So it threw it out of the body. That's my personal opinion. I've never had a problem since.
Wow. How long ago was that?
That was about 2018. That was about 2 years after I started keto.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty cool.
how did you and how do you coach your clients on flipping the sugar switch off? I have a couple ways that I like to do this personally, but I don't necessarily coach like a strict keto. I like low carb, but I don't
I
but
do more low carb. It
okay.
kind of depends on each client. Some of them have already tried keto and they're just really ready to get down into the 50 grams of carbohydrates. And they're really determined to lose the weight and keep it off. And one of the things that I really get from me is my lived experience. So I can get in there and kind of fine tune everything, help them stay accountable. But it's basically, I do like to add in the intermittent fasting. So I usually recommend that they start with some bulletproof coffee because that helps them turn off their appetite. Because part of the problems when they first come in is the cravings. Everybody needs to get control of the cravings, turn off the cravings for this to work. So the first thing that we work on is bringing in the fat and making sure they're getting enough fat, turn off the cravings, make sure they're eating enough food. It could be 2 or 3 meals a day, depending on how hungry they are. And so I adjust that with each client and kind of let them decide what they want to do, but guide them in the process. So once they turn off their cravings, they can fine tune that intermittent fasting. I make sure one of the things that I make sure they do is get 30 grams of protein so that they turn off the cravings for protein.
Early
Because
in the day?
yeah, usually at breakfast or lunch, depending on what they want to focus on. And so
Okay, cool.
the sooner they get that protein and turn off the appetite, then they're not hungry and snacking. And so that one is super powerful, because everything I've been listening to and heard is like, if your body's hungry, your body's looking for protein. If you're eating Doritos, you're never going to turn off that craving for protein. And so what we need to do is actually satiate the body, get 30 to 50 grams of protein into the body, which is, you've probably heard as well, so we could turn off those cravings. It's like magic. If you're going to eat food, eat it all at once. I have them eat whatever they want to eat at that one meal, and then done for until the next meal. And that's the biggest way that I get them started, is using some MCT oil. If they're going to have coffee, add it to the coffee, add the collagen. I like to look at food as medicine. So what food can we add to your coffee? What food can we add to your day that's going to give you medicine, so that you actually empower your metabolism and feel good and make your brain feel good? Because a lot of the times we still have the neurotransmitters might be too low. There may be certain nutrients that we could use to help neurotransmitters, so you can feel better and not have those cravings and hunger, so they can all go away.
Do you consider the bulletproof coffee to be a meal?
I do consider it a breakfast. I've been
Okay.
doing that the last couple of days.
How
I
do you get
had
people to have 30 grams of protein in their bulletproof coffee?
Well, you can't. It's a meal without the protein. Actually, I have a hack for that. I actually do have a hack for that. I didn't do it this morning, but I do recommend that my clients take the perfect aminos. If you're going to do bulletproof coffee, collagen's not a is not going to build muscle synthesis. So to actually get muscle synthesis and create muscle while we're losing weight, what we want to do is add the perfect aminos or something similar that's going to give you 30 grams of protein to get yourself into muscle synthesis, so that that collagen then too has the tryptophan, so it becomes more of a protein that's going to be utilized in the body.
It has the
That's the
complete
way
amino
that I
acid
like to do
profile.
it.
Yeah.
That's the hack. And I've been doing that. And one of the things I've noticed is my hair is thicker. It's growing longer than it's ever had before. And I'm actually developing muscle at 60, but it was more so from the perfect aminos at specific times during the day. So because usually when you're losing weight, the problem is you're not eating enough to build a lot of muscle. And so if you actually pull in perfect aminos, which is designed to actually at 30 grams of protein get you into building muscle. And so that's the thing that I like to use. So I recommend that. And so if you do that with the bulletproof coffee, and even if you don't want to do coffee, you could do it with green tea. I've done it with green tea. And then that makes you feel less hungry. You're getting muscle synthesis. You're getting the collagen to help support repairing joints, muscle, and bone. Your brain feels better, and you don't have the cravings, and you're able to then push back breakfast to 10 or 12 o'clock. And then that way, or lunch, and that way your calories are lower, and it helps with the weight loss. But what that
I'm,
does is turning off inflammation too. You're turning off the inflammation in the body to get to that point.
I'm in the same boat. I always have my clients start off their day with trying to get 30 to 50 grams of protein. Usually I do what's called the $1 million body breakfast shake.
Yeah,
So I'll do 2 scoops of like a whey protein with 2 tablespoons of like an almond butter or something, and mix it up into a shake. And the goal is then to just not have any carbohydrates until the
correct.
PM. I always push those off as late as I can in the day.
Yeah,
So
that's
that way
always perfect.
you're carb backloading and you're actually burning through the glycogen during the day, and then reloading once you've gotten rid of all that glycogen. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm 100% on board with you. So do you consider carbs to be sugar as well? I know a lot of people have different opinions on this
Yeah,
because
I
carbs break down
do.
into glycogen.
I do, because with women, and especially the people I work with, women over 50, we are more insulin resistant. So the more carbohydrates you get that go up over 50, if you're coming into me because you have insulin resistance and blood sugar dysregulation, and you're gaining weight, and maybe you have uncontrollable weight gain, or you want to finally lose the weight for good, and you just haven't been able to get it done. So too many carbohydrates, even fruit, it could be too much sugar on a body that has insulin resistance. So we have to take the carbs down. So all carbohydrates that are Vegetables really don't raise blood sugar that much. You have to just do, if you do the low carbohydrate vegetables, everything's going to be fine. You don't really need to count a lot. What you would need to count are the starchier vegetables. So I usually just don't have people start with starchier vegetables. We always just go with the low carb vegetables. I try to get them to just do berries if they're going to do a little bit of fruit and maybe some nuts and seeds. But basically, if they're going to have the carbohydrates, they need to keep it with their meal and not snack on things. I try to get them not to snack, because if you're snacking, then you lose that fat burning opportunity between your meals. And so
Well
that,
said.
yeah, yeah,
I think that like the idea that eating 6 meals per day stokes your metabolic furnace is one of like the best lies that was ever sold to us by
yeah,
marketing agencies.
yep. And
Do you know
and
where
it
that came from,
and
by
it
the way?
turns inflammation on. I mean, what we need to get the body to do is to burn through all the fat in the body. Fat, all the storage, that the fat is being stored in every cell around your heart and all your muscles in the liver. Your body has been storing and stuffing fat throughout the body, and you could see that on an MRI, which is really cool. And so, what the first month is going to be is reversing fatty liver, and your body needs to not. So, if you put those carbohydrates into your blood, and now you have too many carbohydrates, that's sugar load on the body. Your body has to create triglycerides and store that into your blood. Or if your blood cells are too full, it's going to store it in so many different in your muscle. It'll store it in your muscle. And so what we want to do is burn through all that body fat. And so taking out the carbohydrates as low as you can is going to burn through all that body fat
What do you
everywhere in the
consider?
body.
What do you consider low carb? Like in your
Under
opinion,
50, under
under
50.
50.
Yeah.
Do you know where that 6 meals per day idea came from?
I'm
Who started that?
assuming it's because of athletes who were trying to build muscle. No. Oh,
Nah,
is it from? Oh, it's diabetes because they were trying to make sure they didn't have hypoglycemia. Okay, you
nope.
got me beat. I don't know.
Are you familiar with the company MetRx Metrics?
Um, I may have heard of it. I'm not sure.
They're a supplement company. They're old school though. So like they
Mm.
started off in like the 90s, and they first started
Mm.
coming out with like a real chalky whey protein back then.
Mm-hmm.
And in an attempt to sell more because it didn't taste very good, they started to say, hey, what you need is 3 meals per day, and then you need 3 protein shakes per day. Stoke
Ah,
metabolic
to sell
furnace.
their protein shakes.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's where we get this idea that like eating more smaller meals somehow is improving your metabolism, even though when your body's digesting, you literally can't be burning fat. So
Correct.
it's completely backwards. And we have to do as professionals have to do so much work to like go back and change this myth. I think the only people who need to be eating 6 meals per day are people who need to be getting like 6,000 calories to maintain their weight or to gain
Right. I
weight.
mean, if someone who's building muscle might need that type of
Yeah.
calories, but women
But
over 50
that's
do
not
not.
most of us.
Right. We do not. I mean, the average person does not need that. Basically, the way we're designed is maybe eating 1 or 2 meals a day and fasting the
Mhm.
rest of the time. And that's how the body becomes strong. I mean, I don't know if you've heard the story of the Pima Indians. And back when the Pima Indians, half of them went to a reservation in Arizona, the other half went to live off the land in Mexico. And one of the things they've noticed over the years is the Pima Arizona Indians they were on a reservation, so they were eating processed food, white flour, white sugar, and they have a huge obesity epidemic, and from the very beginning. And so the Mexicans or the Pima Indians in Mexico are more living off the land. They're more active, and they never had diabetes. They stayed lean and they never got fat. And so they've been, trying to figure out exactly what was going on with that. Was it just the gene pool? Well, it was not just the gene pool, because they've been doing other studies. It's basically if you have inactivity. So that's the other side of epigenetics. When you actually become a fat burner, you flip that disease causing gene off, and you could actually stop expressing disease in your body, stop the process of diabetes, and you don't have to have Alzheimer's. You can correct all of that just by keeping the sugar low in your body and using it strategically. If you want to be more paleo and not necessarily what you might think strict with keto or low carb, you want to basically lose the weight, get down into maintenance, reset your body and your metabolism, and then pull in and see what your body can tolerate and see how you feel. That's what I like to suggest to my clients. That's what I do with myself.
So one of the things that stood out to me about your story when you were talking earlier is this idea of nonstop learning and continuing to go back even without success. You said you did paleo for like 3 or 4 years without success.
Right.
And then you kept going down that ancestral route, which led you like the keto and the low carb route. How important is it, do you think, Lori, for someone to actually start really honing in on this and becoming their own expert and doing a lot of research and becoming a bit obsessed with the process? Is that a requisite
It
for
really
long-term
is.
success?
It really is, because you cannot go to the doctor and get yourself healthy. You're just going to get Band-Aid or a drug, and they're not going to be able to support you. I've listened to so many doctors. I think Dr. William Davis was just saying that. I was listening to his podcast, and he's always saying you have to take care of yourself at home. You can't go to the doctor to get healthy. And so what can you do at home? Health starts in the kitchen. You have to prepare your food. You have to go out and get food that's going to support your body. And so you want to pick up cookbooks. You want to just keep learning. You want to hang out with like-minded individuals, and you want to build a vision, build a goal. And what is it that you want your body to look like in a year from now or 5 years from now? And it may not just be how you want to look. Do you want to get down on the ground and play with your grandkids? Do you want to be able to do that? Do you want to be able to walk at 90? Do you want to be able to, just get out and go for hikes? So we got to stay active. And so sometimes we want to look beyond it's just weight loss. How do you
Mhm.
want your health to be? Because it's not just weight. You get a 2-for-1. You get a weight loss and diabetes solution when you actually go on a low carb diet, and then when you dial it in. But a lot of the problem, what happens is people stall out because they don't have support. They don't have accountability. They forget why they started. And that siren call from food sensitivities or from food addictions calls, and you eat one bite and then boomerang, you're just back on track to where you were. So you really want to just keep focusing on what you can do. What's the next step? Did you stall? Are you having a problem? Get right back on. If you have one day where you just didn't, you had a bite, you didn't feel good, the next day, just start over again. You can maybe even push breakfast back, have a second cup of bulletproof coffee, let your body burn through what you did the other day, and just keep going with it. I just like to, I just kept excited. I always was like, let me follow and figure out what's the next step. What can I do? If I'm not losing weight, what can I do now? Like right now, I've gained a couple pounds. I'm kind of stalled out at 131, and I want to get back down to 129. I don't know how much of that was muscle gain or if there was some fat regain. I'm not really sure, but it's really easy for me to get it back off because all I got to do is fast and just really focus on not or getting more movement or getting more sunlight, because circadian balance is huge. That's the other side of this. You just want to activate the fat loss, activate your brain, and just keep yourself excited so that you can do it. And I think that is a lifestyle. I look at it as a lifestyle.
The other word you keep using is excited. You said you
Yeah.
got your life back. You were excited. And for me, that sounds like you got more energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I
I
think that,
didn't think about that, but you're right. It energized my body.
but like, I think like when you're talking about setting the goals and thinking about how you want to look or feel a couple of years from now, I think one of the main things that people do wrong is they eat in a way that destroys their energy. Whether you're eating all day, 6 meals per day,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we have to pull blood from our brain, from our extremities into our gut for digestive process. We lose out on some energy there. Or if you're eating, 500, 800, 1,000 calories, you lower energy there. The more carbs you're eating, the more process, like more you need to
Mm-hmm.
like use blood for that. So less energy there. So I think when you can flip this switch and start getting people thinking, not necessarily like, I want to lose 10 pounds, but like, I want to feel energized. I want to feel good again. I want to be excited about life. That's, I think, where you can start seeing a lot of maintenance or the just kind of the ability to follow through and be dialed in with this, because now it's not so much about like the number on the scale, which we know fluctuates.
Mm-hmm.
We always go up and down. Everyone's going to hit a plateau at some point. But if you can find that energy where you're like, I'm eating in this way and I feel really good, I wake up feeling good, I go to bed and sleep really deep, then all of a sudden that can become the primary goal, and all these other like physical goals can kind of become secondary, because they're going to happen as long as your energy is in the right spot. So I thought that
Exactly.
was a key
It's
point.
all like that. And let me give you an example. I had a client that started with me in January, and she would come home after working for 3 hours and just need to lie down. And then after every meal, she would have to lie down. She had, she was not able to actually walk well. She had a lot of pain. So she was getting ready to get a scooter just to use in the house because she couldn't walk very well. Okay.
That
So
sounds like a
four,
self-perpetuating cycle.
yeah, 4 months into the program, her energy is already fully elevated. Actually, well, she's six. Let's just do 6 months right now. She's down 26 pounds. She can get up from 4 in the morning and be on her feet till 8 o'clock at night. She has more energy than she's can even remember ever having. Her sleep is better, and 95% less pain in the body just by flipping that switch and going low carb and getting all this dialed in. But it's also finding, like, what parasites and H. pylori, if you have those, you need to address them, because what's your digestion look like? So when you get the digestion focused and functioning, then your body can actually start absorbing the nutrients that you're eating, because that's the other side of this. If you have low stomach acid from not eating protein and from eating a low fat diet, you're going to have low stomach acid. You're not going to be digesting your food, and you're going to have more downstream issues with your gut. And if 80% of the immune system's in the gut, and that's where you're going to actually dial in more weight loss when your gut is functioning. All of this is it's like a whole body functioning. You got to look at the whole metabolic problem of the body and figure out where the healing opportunities are and address
Yeah.
them. And
The
so,
body's not a math equation. It's
no,
like it's
no.
just like 1,200 calories equals weight loss. It's
Right,
a
right.
it's a complex chemical laboratory.
Right. And so, you don't want to lose muscle, because that's your basal metabolic rate. So when you actually get on a low carb diet, but focus on protein, bring in the right fat for your brain, when you get that right combination that dials in exactly for you, then your brain turns back on and your body works, and you're actually losing weight, but you're not losing muscle or bone. You're actually keeping those intact, and you might even lose inches without losing a lot of weight. So you want to lose fats more than you want to lose weight on the scale.
How do you coach someone through the first couple like weeks or whatever of a low carb diet if they've never done it before? Obviously our brain is the largest user of glycogen in the body, when you are consuming carbohydrates. And so
Right.
a lot of people get that keto flu, they get headaches, they have lethargy, they don't feel 100%. How do you set expectations or mitigate that so that they can stay the course?
So one of the things I get them to do right away is make sure they get on a salt soleil, and that we address hydration, and that they
Mm.
start using lemon juice, apple cider vinegar. These things might seem trivial, but if we don't get hydration, we're going to be even hungrier, and we're going to feel more tired. And so I
Did you
always
say salt soleil? I'm sorry.
a salt soleil. So what that is you take a good sea salt, like Celtic sea salt or the pink salt or Redmond sea salt, and you put it in a jar with some spring water, and you let it saturate overnight. And what that becomes is that stage 4 water, which is more cellular energy. And so you take a teaspoon to a tablespoon of that. If you have a teaspoon, if you're just starting out, if you still have some edema, but if you're already fully into more low carb, then you could take a tablespoon. And then that just gives you almost 1,000 milligrams of sodium, but in a salt solution that is actually giving you more cellular response. So you could actually reduce inflammation quicker and be more hydrated.
So you'll drink that like first thing in the morning?
I do that first thing in the morning, right? And
Do
and
you leave
then
that out on the like in the refrigerator or just on the
no,
counter?
in the jar on the countertop, I put it, and then sometimes I'll add the cream of tartar to it for potassium, or other times I'll add like an adrenal complex that has more sodium and potassium in it, and some vitamin C. So I do stock electrolytes, and I always, first thing I get people on is collagen. Do the bulletproof coffee, make sure their hydration's right, get them on. I said collagen, but using the MCT oil, working on their appetite, working on making sure that they don't get into the keto flu, and getting them the right type of food so that they could get the low carb diet dialed in quickly, so that they could start seeing weight loss. And then what that does is, if they're eating foods that are causing a lot of inflammation, they're already dropping those foods that are causing inflammation. So that's one of the first things. And right off the bat, I get them their food sensitivity test. And with that food sensitivity test, it's going to test for 176 or 175 foods and chemicals to see what they're reacting to. And once we take that out in the first month, what that's going to do is, you start to drop, like 12 pounds, 5 to 12 pounds, depending on how much you weigh to begin with. And then that way, pain goes away. When you drop that inflammation, when you stop the antigen response in your body, then the pain starts to go away, and that makes it easier and gives them some quick wins. And so all of a sudden, it doesn't feel hard. It feels easy when there's less pain in the body. I hope that answered the question. It's kind of
Oh, and then some.
okay.
So doing your food sensitivity test, that's really interesting. And
It's
obviously like people are going to
foundational.
have,
Hmm.
like some people are allergic to like almonds. I got a friend who's allergic to eggs, which makes
Yeah.
going out
Yep.
to eat with him a whole thing.
Yeah.
But so everyone's got their own like separate sensitivities, but what do you see as common ones that are like coming back on most people's tests?
Well, the problem that I had was the dairy and the wheat. So I had huge dairy and wheat sensitivity, and that was probably why out of 7 kids, I was the only one that gained the weight. That one,
Hmm.
the way it worked for me was I was always eating ice cream. We always had wheat. And when I ran my food sensitivity test later, that came up in red. And so that was a huge red sensitivity for me. So I can't do any wheat. I don't choose to do any wheat anyway, but I also can't do dairy. So I discovered after my food sensitivity test, one of the reasons why I had stalled out with my weight loss was because I was still having dairy. I was having the whey shakes. Everybody says have the whey shakes. It's great to gain muscle, especially if you're a man, you know. But if you have a food sensitivity to wheat and dairy, that's going to give you inflammation. I had asthma. And so I could not get rid of the asthma until I took out the dairy. And so once I took out the dairy, all of the allergies, all of the asthma diminished. I don't have asthma anymore. I don't have to get on no more bronchitis, no more sinusitis, never have congestion in the evening ever, not even with a cold anymore, because I don't have dairy. And so for me, that was huge. And so people need to see that on paper. That was what my brother Mark, when he reversed his diabetes, he had the wheat and the dairy sensitivity as well. And he had to take those out. But seeing that in black and white helps to guide you so that you could actually reduce inflammation so much more quickly by taking those out. And you know what, people, dairy is really hard to give up full time. But if you take it out for 30 days and then bring back in a little bit of cheese, you can feel that little bit of brain dopamine hit, and you could feel good having it occasionally. It depends on how sensitive to you are and whether or not you're going to react to it, even with cheese. Like I tried to have some dairy kefir. I mean, I had bought raw goat kefir thinking, oh, you know what? I think I can tolerate some raw goat kefir, right? I use an Oura ring. My heart
Yeah.
rate was completely elevated for 2 days.
All night.
Yep, all night. Wouldn't go down. It didn't even dip down. It was elevated
Really?
completely across the board. And so then I
Wow.
had some the
Did you
next
notice
day.
any difference with your HRV or respiratory
Oh,
rate as well?
the HRV always tanks if my heart rate's up. So definitely. So, and then I did it again the next day, but I had it earlier in the day. And still same thing. I totally elevated heart rate. And so I can't even have goat kefir. And the other thing with this that I noticed, because you play with dairy, you got to see what your tolerance level is. It's easy to give up the wheat and find other things to eat. However, dairy is a lot harder. It's easier to give up the wheat and the sugar than it is the dairy. And that is the hardest thing, trying to yank that out of people's hands. I've even heard it was Dr. Paul Mason. He's in Australia. And he said, yeah, dairy is the hardest one to get out of people's hands because, it makes you feel good. But when I went
And
to
it's
the
in
brain,
so many things,
yeah,
and like it's in like healthy things too. Like if you can
hmm
tolerate dairy well and you can have Greek yogurt, then
right. If
that's a
you can
pretty good
tolerate,
option for protein. Yeah.
but if you have any arthritis, if you have any pain in the body, if you have pain in your head anywhere, and then if you've got congestion and asthma, you might want to look at just giving up dairy for 30 days and see if some of that clears up, even if you don't run a food sensitivity test, and then see how your body reacts to it. Because when I went to the Grand Canyon, before I walked rim to rim, I went and practiced for 17 miles on the south rim to south rim. So it was South Cape up down to the river to Phantom Ranch and then back up. And that was a 17-mile hike, I believe. And on that one, the day before I started that hike, or 2 days before, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to expend more energy. I can have some fruit. I can have some keto granola. I'm going to put this on top of some goat yogurt. So I had like 8 ounces of goat yogurt. No, it was sheep yogurt. Oh my gosh. I
Sheep yogurt.
woke up in the middle of the night, throwing phlegm out of my body, completely congested.
Sheesh.
And so I cannot,
Sheep.
so the dose is the poison too. So that's why sometimes you can tolerate a little bit of cheese, but you maybe not be able to tolerate some whey protein, liquid milk. And then there's what I've noticed too is even cream. Cream in one of my clients caused pain in her head until she took it out. And then she noticed the difference.
You make me hungry for sheep yogurt right now.
It's really good, but yeah, I haven't had it since.
I believe that, but
That was a huge
I'm a
reaction.
big fan of that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of goat milk. I do great on dairy. I don't worry about it too much, but
Yeah.
the goat milk is just so much better than regular milk.
Right. And I still, I'm still stubborn. I think I want to make some super gut yogurt, and I usually do coconut milk, but it requires using sugar with coconut milk. So I'm like, what if I do some goat yogurt? If I do goat yogurt and put some, and maybe I could tolerate it, the goat yogurt or the goat milk, and make yogurt out of that. And maybe with the different probiotics, maybe my body would tolerate it. So I'm going to explore it. I'm going to still biohack that and figure out if my body can tolerate it.
And this goes back to what one of the first questions I asked you, which is like becoming obsessed with this, becoming like a scientist of your own body, where you're trying things out. And I love that, Lori, because it's not like this this idea of like, this is bad and this is good. It's a black and white. It's binary. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, let me try this out. Let me see how it works for me. You said keto works really well for you. Let me try it for 30 days and give my best shot. Let me try paleo. Let me try a whole
Mm-hmm.
30. Let me try. And I think the more we get into a mode where we're just experimenting, trying new things out and keeping it fun and light rather than this life or death. I need to lose 30 pounds right now or else, or
Right.
I'm going to do this diet again, and we start like beating ourselves up. Like you were talking about, like you ate off plan and now like screw it. I blew it. Like let me eat all the things now. But like, you're like, no, let me just try this out and just see what the results are and just be curious about it. I think there's a lot of enjoyment that can come from that versus this really painful, like white knuckle process that a lot of people turn their fitness journey into.
Right.
How do you
Right.
suggest that people go through with a more open mind and are able to keep it fun and light and learn about themselves rather than making it this slog through hell that a lot of us experience when we think about diet and exercise?
Well, we want to look at it as a lifestyle. Like I said, you could download my. I have that free belly fat buster mini course that's going to be underneath. When with this podcast. But if you just
I'll
read,
throw that in. I'll throw that
yeah,
in the show notes as well. So if you want that stubborn fat
yeah.
buster mini course, it's
And so you
free.
just listen to the workshop. It talks about getting started on a low carb diet or keto, and it has a workbook so you can write down some vision and some goals and just practice, getting started. But if you start looking at this as hacking your health, that you don't want to just look at this as weight loss at this point. You want to say, okay, so weight gain is a symptom of being unhealthy. How can you get your body healthy to lose the weight? And so, do you want prediabetes? Do you want heart disease? Do you want high blood pressure? If you don't want any of those are created because you have metabolic dysfunction and you're eating sugar and your sugar load on the body is too big. So if your carbohydrates are processed and you're eating too many carbohydrates, but you have high blood pressure or you have low HDL, but your triglycerides are too high, what you want to look at is how can I get control of my metabolism, lower my blood sugar so that my body is working and I don't have to worry about getting diabetes. And so if you think about that, because like women over 50, they don't want to have prediabetes. Nobody wants to get sicker. We've seen so many people just drop dead around us and everybody's sick. So if you don't want to be part of that statistic, if 88% of the population in the United States, I don't know if it's around the world, but 88% of the population is sick. And if 1 in 3 people are getting cancer, flip that sugar switch off, flip your disease causing genes off. You've got to make the decision to jump into a lifestyle that is comfortable. And like you say, once you get your energy back, if you pull in a little MCT oil, take out the processed sugar, go down to, like you were saying, just have your carbs in the evening. Let your body kind of recalibrate during the day and just really start getting that energy in. And think about your goal. I mean, do you want to plan a great vacation and be 20 pounds down next year? So look at the vision. You have to visualize it. But the thing is, you have to pull in that circadian balance. Your body's on a body clock. And if you're going outside your body clock, you're going to be dysfunctional. So you have to have the sleep at the right time of the night. You have to stop eating at the right time of the day. You have to get out and get sunlight 3 times a day. I'll go for a 1 mile walk 3 times a day without my eyeglasses on, so I could program my body with the right amount of light. And so that's the other side of this. You could be in a weight loss stall and not get anywhere, but how is your gut functioning? Are you practicing circadian eating? Are you getting circadian balance? And are you blocking blue light at night? Because there's some really good information out there that blue light it raises insulin and is an endocrine dysfunction process. And so you could be fat because you have too much blue light in your eyes from screens, TVs, and not getting out and blocking that sunlight. If you wear sunglasses when you're outside, you're blocking information into your body that's going to help you with weight loss.
I find that's especially true the first 3 hours and the last 3 hours of the day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I still wear sunglasses around noon, 2 o'clock.
Yeah. So
But
you have to, I build up with that so I could actually go outside without sunglasses on and I can tan. But before I used to burn, but I've built my body up. But I've also added an iodine, the right amount of iodine for my body so I can tan. And that's really huge. And when we get the right amount of fat soluble vitamins and give our body an oil change, when we get vitamin A is actually the enzyme that helps us manage light, bring that light into the supercharismatic nucleus so that the body knows what time of the day it is, and it can help you start tanning and the melanopsis process too, so we can tan. But you have to give light to your body so it knows what time it is.
okay, as a super pale person, I gotta know how, like, you're adding in vitamin A and you're adding in iodine,
Yeah. So the
and then
iodine by Lugol solution or you can get it
Is
through.
that dropper or is that
You
pills?
could get the Crow's formula with the Lugal solution. It does state you have to, if you read the book or listen to the book, The Iodine Crisis by Lynn Farrell, that I give that to all of my clients to listen to, because I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe iodine. You have to understand how iodine works in your body. You have to detox the bromide from your thyroid system, because if you're eating bakery breads, you're getting bromide poisoning. And so part of this process is we need to clear bromide from our thyroid, bring in the right amount of salt, and so that we could actually absorb iodine into the body. And so this could be, so this is part of the other factor, is like of things that you can do is you need to get a shower filter. You want to block chlorine going into your body. You don't want to use fluoride toothpaste. When you get all of these things activated, corrected in your body, you can absorb iodine. So when you go outside, you will tan, but you need that oil change because you don't want your skin to oxidize. Because if you're in
Mm.
an oxidated state, you may not get a tan. You might then continue to burn.
So if we want more information about that specific kind of like oil change you're describing, the
Yeah, that's
iodine
part of the
crisis.
program that I have. Yeah, my holistic low carb program is involved. It diet, rest, exercise, stress, toxins, and circadian balance, and movement, and targeted supplementation for whatever you specifically need. And a lot of this could be the neurotransmitters. Like, do you have the right amount of neurotransmitters so you feel good, can get excited, and feel happy about what you're doing?
Cool. Lori, this has been fascinating. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing some your expertise with us, giving us that free gift. Anything you want to leave us with before we jump today?
Yeah, so my holistic low carb method is available to anybody, but my specialty is working with women because I lost most of my weight in menopause. So don't think that you can't lose weight in menopause and that it's going to be stuck and stubborn. There's so many things that we can do. We just have to turn on the body and activate fat loss. And so I do have a free food sensitivity test that comes with one of my paid programs. And so when we run functional diagnostic labs, we could find your weight loss blocks. We could find the hidden healing opportunities, collapse the time it takes to get healthy, and lose the weight this year. And so that is available to anybody who wants to jump on a call and find out how to work with me. But in the meanwhile, just stay excited. That's the thing. You got to look at this as a lifestyle. And when you download the Belly Fat Buster mini course that's free, just work on it, listen to it, and follow me on YouTube, because I've got so much good information out there. And I am just like you. I'm just a regular person, but I just got excited. I started reading, I listened to podcasts, I hang out with like-minded people like Nate here and listen to the podcast. If you can listen to doctors who understand this, you will be empowered, because that's, if they understand it and they're giving you the cardiometabolic health issues that you need to focus on, that happens when you take out the foods that are making you store sugar.
Awesome. Lori, thank you so much for everything today. I really
You're
appreciate you coming on.
welcome. Thank you for having me on.